Good evening, everybody. That time of the week once again. My God, how hot has it been? I bet you've heard that a million times already. I had one hell of a day yesterday. I had so much work planned getting selections ready of all these new fish to get out for customers, so there was no chance of skirting away from it. Our greenhouses have got to about 60 degrees yesterday. So, wow, it was absolutely mental. Literally like a sauna. The minute I opened my mouth to take a breath in, it just dried everything out inside my mouth. Absolutely wild, but managed to get through it. I think about 5 a.m. In the morning until 6 p.m. in the evening. So proper shift. I'm glad it took a bit of a dive today, although it seems to have been more humid and greenhouses still weren't very pleasant. But yeah, there we have it. I hope all of your koi have been all right and not caused you any problems. Our kids are watching. I promise them I'll have a shout out next week. Hello, Arthur. Hello, Atty. Yeah, we missed it and I got into trouble. So there we go. Enjoy, kiddos. Yeah, I hope your fish have been all right. Obviously, I should imagine we're getting some pond temperatures that you're probably not that used to getting, in all honesty, and make the most of it, guys. Pile that food in, get that growth on, and while it's as warm as this, really take advantage of it. You know, don't muck around, grow food, get plenty of fat and protein into them, and really make the most of it. So there we are. That's the quick update there. Got a few bits to run through tonight. Another appreciation. It's another Showa. Unfortunately, I'm not going to lie, I've been rushing around like a maniac and I'd forgot, but I've just got one. There's only one picture. It's a complete timeline I'm going to show you. But this was a really special fish to share. So I think you'll be very interested to see it. And yeah, Chris is here. He's over at the Koi Wholesale office at the minute. It was really good last week, so I thought I'd get him to join in again and start firing through some of them questions. So yeah, let's get Chris in first of all. Adam, buddy.
Hello.
See how bad that internet connection is up there now. I don't think I'm doing too well myself.
Yeah, the hamsters are going full bore, mate. So yeah, hopefully
we're just completely plagued by terrible internet everywhere. Shocking.
It's the north of the country, mate.
Well, let's not get into that. That's going to get comments firing. Right, mate. So first bits, I'm just going to have a run through. I think it'll be quite an interesting one. Yamabuki Ogon. We've been having this chat today, and I think we'll let people in on it because I've just done yesterday. I did selection on a pond of NND Yamabuki Ogon that I've been growing, and my God, these things are done well. NND are a great farm, probably my second choice to go to for Yamabuki over Izumia, and they're pretty close, to be honest with you. Izumia's got a bit of a size advantage. It is a bit of a jumbo lineage for Yamabuki. But NNDs don't do too bad. But in regards to colour and all the qualities, they really do stack up. So yeah, I'm going through doing this selection. I think 80 pieces I had altogether, and yeah, it just sprung to my mind that how underappreciated I think that variety is, Chris. To be honest, the complexity. I mean, I'm looking at them. You know, they've got the body. I'm thinking, my God, you're bringing together a body which is not easy in Yamabuki. Luster, fuchering, coloration, consistency of that luster as well. Make sure it's hitting head, fins, body, and then avoiding the red blemishes just to get a really nice, you know, yellow coloured Yamabuki in the long run. You need pigment in themselves. So what that can tend to do is overdevelop and then either get the red blemishes or turn into orange Ogon, which is all a pain in the arse. And I think the comment that springs to mind is how a lot of people refer to them is they're just a Yamabuki. And that's what sort of got me thinking, my God, you know, these are really, when Yamabuki's done properly, they're mega. They really are mega. And we'll pull some cracking fish out of these. Yes, the whole batch is cracking, to be honest with you. I'd have kept them all, but I'm limited on space. They're certainly worth grabbing. I think they create a big presence in a pond. But yeah, the complexity of getting them right. And when I actually think back, you might have noticed yourself, there's not actually that many people that really do Yamabuki, certainly on any specialist level.
Not to a high degree, no.
In Japan, I think Izumi, obviously top dog. NND, the NND lineage was built off the back of Izumi, as many do. Sakazumi's been pushing hard on them in recent years, and other than that, it's just the odd few breeders who tend to produce them to put in the mix.
Yeah, that's it.
Don't really push them to any extent. It's just to add that bit of yellow colour. And yeah, off the top of my head, I can't really think of anybody else.
Not focus on it and really push on the size. No doubt, if one of the big boys started playing around with it, they'd have a different. They'd push the bar up again.
Obviously, Momotaro went crazy with them, didn't they? And they produced that monstrous lineage, but the whole idea behind them was just to produce something enormous.
Yeah. It's not.
And in all fairness, they're not the most elegant looking Yamabukis.
And am I right in saying they're not exactly that attainable as well?
Everything there really.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's just the point I wanted to get across. Is appreciation for some of these things. I think single coloured koi can really slip under the radar at times because people presuming they should be relatively inexpensive, and they're just produced en masse, but they're really, really not. Because the tough thing is as well, I think because of that perception, that's possibly a reason why breeders don't decide to invest in them as a variety. When these things come good
as a variety to complement other fish as well, that stark contrast. I mean, that Yamabuki coupled with a Kahaku is a great sight. Just that contrast and just elevates other fish in the pond. I think they're. I think when you see a cracking Yamabuki, I think they've got one of the most stunning heads that you can have on a koi. Just that deep transition from the head to the body, that luster, the shine, the consistency of the pigment. Yeah, I love them. I really do.
Well, here we are. I've got one. We'll just let that comment go off the screen in a minute. I've just got. I did take a quick snap with my phone, and this was the site. Absolutely immense. I mean, look at the colour in them already. Superb. And these were like 22 to 28 cm toe size as it stands, but really impressed. The fuka in them already for such a young fish was quite incredible. You probably noticed that, Chris. It's not often that you see it that pronounced, at that age. It certainly doesn't happen in the Izumi ones normally. And this is one thing the NND do really get that intense colour.
Yeah, at a young age as well. I mean, I know a lot of hobbyists, when they speak of Izumi, they want that yellow. Don't go too dark too early. There's a bit more of a consistency in the pigment of the NND lineage. So I remember years ago when we had a grow and show with some Izumi Yamabuki Ogon, everyone was just the comment that keep coming out was go for the pale ones, go for the pale ones, go for the pale ones. The richer coloured ones are the ones that people want, but people were scared to pick them. But obviously with the NND lineage, there's a bit more richness at a younger age. Yeah,
absolutely. Just a quick button now. Obviously, don't forget, guys, we are going to work through some of the old questions, but please feel free fire in anything that's on your mind. And while you're watching, hit the like button, hit the share button. Please, just so this benefits as many people as we can possibly get to. Just got a question here I can see from Terry. How are you getting on, Terry? Talking on Yamabuki, who would you say as of now is the best for holding body colour over time? Izumi and NND. I think we've just made that quite apparently clear. Izumi have got even harder and harder to get hold of in recent years. To be fair, the Tosai now, it gets sold so early. Asia is just one of them places they just snap them up because he is the lineage is top dog for Yamabuki. That's generally how they buy, and it's what's been happening. So. Yeah, and NND were doing really well, absolutely flying on them. And the parent fish died about 3 years ago, I think it was. So I do know he's been experimenting the past 2 years, and actually interesting results that I've seen. The body on these was really stand out. the sort of height on the body and the head looks really, really aggressive on them. And I believe they bought one of the Kin Matsubas from Dainichi, the Botan line. And that's what they've been using with their males, because last year they produced them and it was a really shitty spawning. They all just pretty much looked like Matsuba coming through in the back. And this year they seem to have nailed it. Numbers still weren't massive. I mean, I only got them 80 pieces. It was real sort of high quality ones that I paid for and bought off them. But yeah, fascinating. I just think that's just one there, a variety that can easily slip under the radar, but we should be, as with any variety, you know, to do it properly, there's a lot of work got to go into it. And yeah, appreciation should be the same regardless. So that's that one. And just one more to go on to, because I've been getting a lot of questions from this, certainly in America as well at the minute, sort of in awe really of how we're sort of doing things up there with the stocking levels, growth being achieved and all the rest of it. And it just gets me thinking, just a point I sort of want to go over again, is that I think one thing to really point out is you cannot underestimate the combined experience that we've got sat up there. I mean, how many years you've been doing this, Chris?
Over 20 now.
Over 20. I'm knocking up about 22 years, I think, now. And then we've got my dad, obviously managing a lot of the fish houses, who puts us both to shame combined, I think, pretty much in regards to fish keeping experience. So, you know, there's a lot there that's just really that experience driving and pushing. Obviously, as we're going along, trying to sort of dissect that a little bit to share it with you. But I think the biggest thing I really want to stress, and this is not having a dig at anybody, because we're all in the hobby for different things and different levels of enjoyment, and it really depends. But I've said this before, every decision that I make up at Koi Wholesale with those ponds is completely centered around what is best for the fish. There's never a consideration for anything else. It's what is best for the fish, then what improvements can I make that's, again, best for the fish. I'm not fussing about water clarity. It's absolutely bottom of the list. And I'm not talking keeping ponds pea green, because I get it, that's a pain in the arse. But I think I see people obsessed completely about having the water like tap water, literally physically constantly, no bits floating around in it, absolutely crystal clear and all that, where all I can see is that in order to achieve that, everything you're going to do to achieve that is probably detrimental to the fish. I don't know if you'd agree with that, Chris. So I'm sort of thinking along them lines is you've you know, changing heaps and heaps of water, probably keeping feed to bare minimum, just every choice. And even then when you do it, that crystal clear water, certainly as weather we've just had and the intensity of the sun, it's not actually all that good for the fish. And you probably find, you know, that kind of environment is going to be, you know, harder to keep good skin luster, damaging to Benny from the sunlight and things like that. So you can just see the process. Like I say, every decision we make is what's best for the fish. Heating, you know, that's just another one that's been, you know, it's not really a big conversation for now, but it should be, because we've got people deciding to heat in winter thinking that's best for the fish, when in reality it's not. Using them heating dollars, if you like, and using them in the summer is what's in the best interest of the fish. Just completely different ways, I think, a different way of looking at koi keeping. Yeah, filter systems. I think this is another thing, choices of filters and bits and bobs these days. Probably not. I'm having that weird thing at the minute where I'm looking around fish houses thinking, or looking at people's ponds and seeing footprints of filters becoming nothing. I know things have changed, obviously, like since K1 came to town, the game changed, but we did a reader's pond the other day, and I know the guy's having a few issues. And the first thing I looked at was this huge pond, massive footprint, and the filter was just, I'm presuming it was a combi drum, but it was tiny, so disproportionate. And just there, I'm looking at that instantly, and yeah, it's a small footprint, but that's pond design, not thinking fish first. It's thinking aesthetics over, you know, leave the smallest amount possible for the filter when you should have had a lot more space to possibly get bigger systems in there, but this footprint, it just looked impossible for that to physically maintain the size of pond that it was looking at. But no doubt somewhere, and the manufacturer's a lot to blame for this, some manufacturer's gone and slapped a label on it somewhere saying, you know, this will filter X amount of thousands of gallons, and that's what unfortunately you guys get guided by. And yeah, I just think it's worth, you know, you're looking at what we're doing. Like I say, every decision is really centered on absolutely what's priority for the fish houses when they're built. You know, it's all the things that are not. We're far better off insulating the fish house. This is a discussion I have with breeders in Japan from a cost and everything perspective, and for selfish reasons, we're better off we insulated fish houses where all the walls, everything are absolutely padded up. The cost of that is we cut daylight. Simple as. The minute we cut daylight, we're sacrificing because we don't get the algae growth. It's not as beneficial to the skin and the pigmentation and all the rest of it. And yeah, that's just another choice there that would, from a completely makes sense from a business point of view, but from a fish point of view, not the right one. So I hope we get what you're saying there. I just think, and then the simplicity as well, you know, not chasing the wrong parameters. I think a too much obsession on really fine details of water parameters where it becomes a little bit too excessive. You know, I've had the whole nitrate debate. Me and you did it on one of our Koi Talk podcasts, didn't we, Chris, last week? You know, and I pointed out that there's a whole list of stuff really first that you should be prioritizing and looking at before getting into the realms of looking at something that's of very little relevance, in my opinion. So yeah, there we go. That's sort of mine on that one. I'm absolutely sweltering up here. This office is horrendous.
Yeah, this one's quite cool at the moment, mate.
Yeah. Anything on your mind, Chris? While I have a scroll through, pick some questions and see what's about.
Well, it's always, you know, we're always mega busy, Rick. I don't think anyone that knows us knows that we don't have much spare time. But I've just had 15 minutes sort of wandering around the farm, literally just switching off and just looking at the fish, and it is great to see what can be achieved in the UK. You know, if the right environment is put in place, you know, what's being achieved up here at the moment is. We had a conversation with a customer earlier about what Shinoda he at Suri will be landing for, trying to do a direct comparison, and it's we're on par, and I would say in some circumstances we're above par.
Yeah, that is my obsession kicking in there, though, because I think it's fair to say, you know, whenever it's come to raising fish, the bar for me is what my eyes have absorbed in Japan. And if I'm not doing it on that kind of level, which is hard to replicate, mud pond versus concrete, again, that's another one we've discussed, just through the sheer amount of food you have to use to sort of do it, to be honest. But yeah, that's been the bar for me. And I think last year, actually, I tipped it with the Marseille, the Utsoris. Seemed to be a theme developing, but they were substantially bigger than the Nisai produced by the breeder at the farm.
Yeah.
And yeah, Shinoda more of a challenge this one, but I think I'll probably tip him a little bit.
Well, I think if you halve the stock in there, you do it easily.
it's getting close, isn't it? It really is getting close. Well, there we go. Right, sorry, I got drawn in there, and I'm not paying attention. Right, let's have a look. Terry, just wondering, having this issue previously, if you have koi pox and have cleared your pond of the koi and started again, how likely is it that it's gone, or what is best to keep it out? Do you want to go with that one, Chris?
Yeah, it's not. I think there's still quite a bit of research to be done on the subject. I mean, from speaking to marine biologists, it's there's no foolproof way of doing away with it. Some people are saying it's a little bit inherent in the fish. You know, obviously conditions bring it out. Other fish being slightly more susceptible to it than others. We've seen that.
I think it's important to just to point out and butt in that obviously koi pox is a herpes virus. So it's a lot of fish are carriers of it, and it's generally stress induced from as much as we know.
So a lot of fish
thrives more in cooler water.
Yeah, a lot of fish act as vectors, so they'll carry the information of the virus. I don't know. I mean, it's plagued hobbyists for years. I don't know if there's any surefire way of ridding it. I know back in the day, Peter Waddington had his theories about the whole cowpox and hikui sort of side of things. Mentioned that it's rarely seen in Japan. Why is it that we see it more in the UK? It's a great question. I would honestly love to have a scientific, factual answer for you. I think the reality is it's circumstance orientated. So
yeah, I mean, I'm not seeing this as being something that's waterborne. Obviously, it can pass, it can spread, but I don't think if you've cleared the pond out, the hosts have gone, so to speak. But yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? It's sort of tackling it over years. I've had extreme cases of it where even the heat's not shifted it. I've had a fish covered head to toe in sort of like 28-degree water, and it's just not budged. So it does generally. Heat does get rid of it well.
And virus as well to a degree. Younger
fish that immune
response. Younger fish seem to be more susceptible to it. I don't know whether that's the nature of it. I mean, I must admit, I would like to understand more about it, but I'd be lying if I had a concrete answer for you. I don't know if you've got anything to add there, Rick.
Yeah, I would just be. I mean, if you cleared the fish out, I don't think you've got any issue. You restock, but the chances are you don't know unless you're having fish PCR tested, you don't actually know if you've got another potential carrier in there. But it's not like it's I mean, it's unsightly. It's very unsightly. But like I say, with these kind of temperatures we've got at minute as well, in the majority of cases it just go away. So. Yeah, I hope that helps, Terry. Right, what else we've got? Just had my eye on a question there, which was quite a good one for any newbies watching. We'll just find it again. There we go. How often in this weather should you top up your pond? New to this. I'd just say, Lewis, it's quite a simple one. It's depending on your system as well. Obviously, if you've got a gravity-fed system, you're going to have to maintain a certain water level anyway. That's absolutely essential. And yeah, likewise, if it's pump-fed, I don't think it hurts if you don't want it getting too low. If you've dropped an inch or so, slowly get it topped back up. Save you having to drop big amounts of fresh water in there to bring it right back up to level. So. Yeah, that's where I'd go with that one. Quite a simple one there, Chris. Right, folks, let's have a look. Oh, we've got a Yamabuki question here. I missed from Terry again. He's on fire tonight, getting his money's worth. Is it just me, or do the ones with a more orange tinge become darker with age to almost being orange over the yellow? Yeah, go for it, Chris.
Yeah, again, speaking about this earlier, Ricky, I think certainly consistency of pigment is quite important. When I'm looking at Yamabuki selection, I want to see consistent pigment. When you see these darker patches within I remember a couple of breeders likened them to what they call sort of sunspots, which is kind of like the equivalent of a shimmy on a Yamabuki. It's a bit unsightly. Obviously, as the fish grows, generally that pigment is retained. So you have this two-tone yellow/orange, if you will. And obviously, one of the big parts of Yamabuki is pigment consistency and having that consistency from the head of the fish down to the tail. So I would say there is typically, when I mentioned earlier that people, particularly from the Izumia line, looking for the more pale fish because that richness in the colour tends to come with age. But now the NND lineage, which is relatively new, as Ricky was saying, they seem to have a different slant on it. So I would say there's a degree
It
of
starts off more intense for sure.
Yeah, and if you applied the same rules that you did with Izumia, for example, to NND, you might find yourself overlooking some fish that would actually do a bit of damage in the future. So not a straightforward question to answer. There's, generally speaking, I would say, look at the consistency of the pigment. If they have an orangey sort of twinge, as opposed to just a rich yellow, then yeah, it would probably be a sign of things to come. But yeah.
My general rule of thumb for this, there's always exceptions, but my general rule of thumb is they're in the category of, if your toe sign is, year, 2 years old, paler. You go paler, and it's a pretty safe bet because they are always going to, darken over time. That's a given. Interestingly enough, this is always a great one when you see Izumia harvesting this side in autumn, because of the mud ponds having obviously the lack of UV getting into the mud ponds. He pulls them up and they look like very, very dirty, poor parachinas. And he's got them swimming around in these ponds asking proper money for these things, and they look terrible. I've seen the amount of people walk away from them for that reason. I had a customer with me one year, and he was just like looking at me like I got 3 heads. Like, what's going on here? I was like, look, don't worry, it's going to come. And sure enough, it takes about 6 to 8 weeks back in the fish houses in full sunlight, and bang, they're popping, and they just go from strength to strength from it, really. So yeah, good question, Terry. But my rule is just generally year to year, I'll go a bit on the paler side, because naturally they will darken. If you go really intense yellow, almost tipping orange at toe side, that is likely possibly going to over darken. Right, good one on the running question just from Lewis there. Running an extra 320, is it worth upgrading to a drum filter? Now, reason I've picked this one, and I'll ask you, you're obviously watching, Lewis, is there something you're not happy with your pond? Let's go with that one first, because asking a question like that, really, it's going to depend on what's happening, because there's 2 angles to this as I'm seeing, Chris. If we're happy with the pond setup and you're happy with everything else, then no, stick with what you've got. If there's something not functioning right, probably have a look deeper to see if there's some issues within the system you could easily correct. Then alternatively, yeah, I can't see any other reason, really, in most cases.
I pretty much echo that. Obviously, if you're looking or striving to get better results for whatever reason, is the maintenance too much? Is it not keeping up with the feeding regime? Is the biochamber fully loaded? That could make a big difference on a 320. The standard amount of media that it comes with can be vastly. It could be almost over doubled, I think it is, Rick, isn't it, from memory?
Yeah, that's a massive point. I mean, you're talking
for not a lot of cost, A
200 only comes with 50 litres, I think, and it can hold up to 200. That's just a massive upgrade there straight away.
And quite a, Nexus filters, people bash them online, but I mean, they're probably one of the most sold units in the koi industry.
Yeah, you got to agree.
I think the modern day koi keeper, literally all they want to do is crack open a beer and chuck some food in. So the day, even the day of sort of 10 years ago, when the Nexus opening an air valve seemed like a game changer. All you got to do is do this.
Yes.
Even now, when I speak to clients, they're like, "Well, I don't want to be going out there sort of twice a week and turning a valve," and it's just like.
And there we turn into my other bit from previously, fish first.
Yeah.
That's where that one's at, isn't it? But yeah, I'm with you. I mean, the Nexus for me, I think there's always I think it's easy just to look, but I've seen what performance you can get. Dad, keep the Nexus, awesome. Yeah, the reason we're laughing there, folks, is my dad has the joy of trying to keep those 8 drum filters I've got running on a daily basis. It's itching to get them off and set fire to them, I think. Mental. I've lost my thread there as well. Where was we at, Chris?
Well, I think
Oh yeah. Yeah, the Nexus performance issue. I mean, I was actually thinking about this earlier as well because I'd seen there was a Nexus owners group that I was browsing around this morning. I thought, oh, I'm going to dive in here, see how interesting this is. And he's always, obviously, yeah, he always do seem to get a bit of stick for whatever reason. But I think what they've done for the industry in creating that stuff has been phenomenal. Yeah. But yeah, all that aside, if you even just look, I mean, the Easy is an incredibly efficient mechanical filter. I think people forget that a mechanical filter only has so much capacity, and when it's full, it's not going to start. It's not going to catch anything else. Stuff's just going to bypass it, over it, under it, around it, whatever it can do. It's going to bypass it because that system generally, to the biggest extent, will keep running. And this is the same as if you've got brushes. The brushes get to the point where they can't collect anymore, so stuff starts to bypass them. So it can just be simple things of flow rates have always been a big one with Nexus systems. It sort of ties into what I said earlier as well. When the footprint has shrunk, as it has done, I mean, all of a sudden you had people that had 8-foot long bay filters shrinking down to this tiny Nexus unit. You're keeping the same pump, same flow rates. All of a sudden, retention times have just changed drastically, and I think they're overlooked a lot. I've lost my thread again. I think this heat's getting to me. I think it's time to pack up.
I think flow rates are a big thing with Nexus.
Yeah, sorry, the size of mechanical filters. So even the amount you're maintaining it, it might just be something you need to get right. As well, the flow rates, it might just be that you're deciding to do it once a week because that's when you do it, when in reality it might need cleaning 2 or 3 times a week, because that's what the pond needs, and that's probably what's best for the fish. The drain a good purge while you're doing it. I think all round it's a winner. So interesting to see. I don't think we've had a reply yet, but I would appreciate one just to know if there is any issues actually with it, the system that we can discuss.
When they're mature, it takes a lot to knock a Nexus.
Yeah.
I've installed, taken out, changed, you name it. I've done it everything in this industry with every filter. And one thing they are pretty damn good at and fairly bulletproof at is maintaining water parameters. Now, if you're judging your water by having a few particles in it, then yeah, maybe you might be disappointed with it. But is that saying that the filter is not performing, or is that just saying that your expectations are completely unrealistic? I mean, let's face it, what's the Nexus 320 now? About 1,500 quid, something like that?
I've got no idea, but I know they're a fraction of the cost of the drums.
Around that, and run properly, you could run a 4,000 gallon pond quite comfortably on that, and grow fish quite well.
Yeah,
it's not bad going.
Yeah, and we're obviously talking that capacity. There's so many things you can do with that. Even we're talking about 300, so that can hold up to 300 litres of media. I think it comes with one as standard. I mean, you literally can triple the biological capacity, which is huge. But it's not also forgetting that in tripling the biological capacity, you're also increasing the capacity for mechanical removal. Because again, I think we've said it, the importance of biological filtration in the mechanical filtration process is vast. Because what does all this bacteria feast on? The bacteria rotifers, everything growing in that biofilm is feasting on particles down to 1 micron. The drum filter can't filter that. It's just one part. And like you say, I agree with you. It's the water they produce. For me, I've always noticed the difference. It creates a very healthy environment. The system in itself is intelligent with a moving bed, so it stops any shit settling in the biochamber. Just a very clean, efficient system, in my opinion. So, I would say unless something's really broke, don't go changing. And if something is not quite right, probably look at what tweaks you can make, because there's more than likely something in there that you can alter. Here's a good one, Chris. Chris is an Arsenal fan, by the way, folks. It does provide a bit of entertainment between the pair of us. Any tips on catching a 65 cm Showa that flatly refuses to be netted? On the rare occasion I have managed to get it in the net, when I bring it to the surface, it leaps 2 foot in the air, out and back into the pond. If you can solve this, Ricky, any chance you can get the De Jong transfer to United sorted, please? That I've got absolutely no hope of getting sorted.
Neither's Ten Hag there, mate, either, I'm afraid.
Dear me. Yeah, so netting your fish, Christ, it's a hard one without actually being there, which that's not on offer, by the way, unfortunately. I wish I could help, but yeah, tricky one really. Make sure you're gonna have to have a big enough net. I mean, 65 cm is a fair fish.
Yeah.
I would say you want to be at the very least an 80 cm pan for a fish like that. I see this in nets as a real issue in the way they're manufactured, to be honest with you. Snobbish, whatever it is, the Japanese got nets perfect. And it's, for me, the depth of the pan is absolutely crucial to helping catch a fish. That and then technique. Obviously, I think a lot of us know it's no good chasing around because the fish will always win. Slow and steady wins the race with this one. But yeah, the net, because as you're getting it up, what you need to sort of do is angle. Angle on your net's absolutely key. So from where you're stood, angling that net upwards, fish like that, fish's head in, just so you can obviously guide it. And if it does jump, then it's only realistically going to hit the top part of the net that you've got angled out of the water. However, if the pan is not shallow or it's too shallow, you're not going to be able to get the angle that you need to get the fish out safely. And likewise, if the pan is too deep, all that gives the fish is plenty of time to get its tail, get some power under that tail, and that fish to launch and be out of there. So possibly look at the net that you're using. But other than that, yeah, practice makes perfect. I'm going to go with that one. Can't really say too much more, but I think that's probably a worthwhile one for us to note and probably look at some Koi Talk videos around that to give some practical visual advice on catching them, because I should say catching fish plagues a few koi keepers, because it really is practice makes perfect. With that one. Right, just bear with us, folks, while we have a look. Rick, good evening, Rick. Hi, Rick, Chris. I'm going to run a backy shower off my Wilder drum filter. Any tips, concerns, or is it even worth doing in the first place? Yeah, I'd say so. You know, showers run. There's lots of advantages to showers, as we've seen. The Heelt Story pond is, you know, since that's gone on, the level of performance from them ponds has gone through the roof. It's a nice way of adding that extra biological capacity. Different type of media in there generally, and the general effect can produce different bacteria and different processes going on. Degassing on the water, if you get the shower set right, really important. So yeah, I don't see any negatives to that. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, you're never gonna hear me saying all filtration is a bad thing. I think if you can justify the costs, the added potential running costs, then yeah, go for it. It's only going to stabilize and enable you to hit the pond a little bit heavier with the feeding. So if that's your bag, so yeah, no issues with that whatsoever.
No, plenty of benefits. So yeah, go for it, Rick. Right, good one here, Crafty Koi. When planning a pond, what should you consider for water returns? I'm told that the Japanese have their returns at one end. What's your thought? I'm going to let you go first, Chris, and then I'll give my 10 pence worth.
Yeah, I think it's quite a contentious subject. You speak to 10 different people and you'll get 10 different answers, is the reality of it. There are, in my opinion, advantages to doing it certain ways and disadvantages to doing it other ways. So, I mean, having the returns at one end would, for me, depend on the shape of the pond for a start. I don't know what shape we're dealing with here. Obviously, a lot of people like to try and generate this centrifugal motion, but I mean, obviously, if you're running 4-inch bottom drains, naturally solids are going to move towards the center of the pond regardless. So, yeah, an exact answer would depend on the situation for me. Obviously, if we're talking a bit of a formal pond, sort of rectangular in shape. You know, that seems to be all the ponds that I build, that tends to be the go-to shape. Then an underwater return to keep the water fairly calm and aerate the pond in the filter system is my preferred method. I don't know if I can add anything to that.
No, I'm pretty much bang on the nail with Crafty. Yeah, this is for me. I'm one-ended, because I think this ties into what I was saying earlier. It's another example, sort of what came of what's best for the fish, in my opinion. And this is sort of two-pronged here, looking at flow patterns created from returns and aeration in the pond, because I think the whole sort of thing that was in the teaching when I first got into koi keeping was the centrifugal returns, reversible, that circular motion, creating a vortex in the pond, and aerated bottom drains, creating that up-down motion to draw stuff to the bottom drain. If I look at that, yeah, it's not the one for me, because I've seen, you know, it's certainly taking a smaller pond, for example, circular square, something like that. The power of them bottom drains coming up and that flow pattern it creates is really disruptive to the fish. It's not natural for them. They don't particularly like it. It's something for them to really fight and compete against and can't really get away from either. So they generally wouldn't be my choice. I think it's probably smart sometimes while you're doing it to fit an aerated bottom drain anyway, just in case, because it's just one of them things. There's no going back once you've cast it. It's a lot of work to do. So I would fit one, but typically probably I prefer to go aeration, returns all at one end. I think I've said it before. You know, if you've got a blank canvas and any options possible, nice sort of long pond, rectangular in shape, with length more focused than width, not too deep. You know, sort of 1.2 meter. I see as being absolutely ample, meter and a half tops. And yeah, returns all at one end and creating that whole flow, whether they're in the wall, above the surface, whatever it is, all at one end, aeration at one end. If you're having a shower, all at that one end to create that one directional gradient of a flow. So you've got more intensity at one end, and that intensity is going to taper off towards one end of the pond, more than likely the area where they're going to feed them. It's where I feed them. The 3.5K ponds are all run like this. And it's a little bit stiller. So, you know, if you've got bigger fish, especially, they're not against a torrenting current when you're trying to feed. They're much more settled. And yeah, I believe that's what you're going to get the best results from body growth and development, everything there from having that kind of setup. And yes, that is the way a lot of the Japanese are running systems. Marido, just springing to mind, Sakai, Taniguchi. A few that pop up that are all running that kind of way, and it seems to be effective. So hope that answers that one for you.
Just to add to it as well, nowadays we've got to take a look at how ergonomic the system is as well. So obviously there's no point in running bigger pumps and running it to the opposite end of the pond for the sake of doing it. So, you know, having the returns closer to the pond is only going to benefit you as well. You're going to get a better flow, and it's going to cost less to do it. So I just see some people pump their returns right up the other end of the pond only for it to come back in.
Yeah.
For nothing other than a setting. So,
Yeah. And just one last question there. Hey guys, Ricky say you don't like the bottom aeration, but Dainichi does it that way. I am just talking bottom drain aeration, and it's the positioning and the way it works. Dainichi doesn't aerate bottom drains. No breeder in Japan aerates the bottom drain. They don't actually have bottom drains. They just it's a 4-inch thing with a grate over the top, generally stainless steel grate. And yeah, they do aeration very differently. Dainichi uses, and it's the sort of airstone I'm trying to get over to this country. It's a really fine diffusion tube that they use. But Dainichi's ponds are enormous. So, you know, this that I've spoke about is not having an effect because there's still ends of the pond still. Fish can get away from it. But the positioning of the air has nothing to do with where the drain is in the pond. And these diffusers create such fine air. It's not the really aggressive big bubbles that fire up out of aerated bottom drain diffusers. This is really, really fine stuff. So Elliot, I would argue that that's not factually correct. If we're talking about aerated bottom drains, they do aerate from the bottom. That's not what I'm getting at. It's the positioning of it and how we're actually doing it and delivering it there. So, yeah, Chris, I think I know you need to shoot, mate, don't you?
I've got a date with the colonel, mate, so I better get going.
Still. So I'll let you shoot. And yes, folks, we're going to finish with some Koi appreciation. And yeah, thanks for your time, Chris. I'll catch you later on.
You guys, take care. Bye.
So, yeah, like I say, it's another Showa. We're not going to be, because I couldn't find all the individual pictures of this. However, I've got the one stitched up. So the backstory on this, I did actually feature this fish. I think it was in the magazine. This was really, for me, it's an Umo Showa, a lineage that doesn't actually exist in the form it was anymore. Really unique type of Asumi with this one, and while you'll see the development end to end, and I'll sort of guide you through and explain it. But this was a fish. This was a combination of years of working to be actually offered the best fish at the farm in autumn. Something I'd tried from the minute I'd met through Joe, but breeders don't just do this. So I have to earn your stripes. So I went through the whole process over the years, and just the coming together of his trust in me. Having the client for the fish as well, client putting his faith in me. The remit was find me something special, and he wanted to grow it on in Japan for a couple of seasons. So that's exactly what we went with. And when I was presented with this fish, I wasn't actually traveling to Japan this autumn. It was all done by a video. But the minute I saw this video, God, it just melted my brain. And phoned the client up, and it was just literally, you need to buy this. Trust me, you need to buy this, because it's wasn't the most obvious maybe to someone at the experience level he was at the time, but enough chatting about it. It was also a case where the Azakari process in Japan was a real win with this one as well. So here it is. So it was purchased on the left-hand side, Nisai 52 centimeters. That was the one that really floated my boat. And then, yeah, as you progress through, so it stayed the next year. Sanzai popped up to 65 cm in the mud pond at NND, and then another year I got to 76 cm. And then it's quite typical with the lineage. It sort of got to 78 over here, and crazy result. So what I saw in this fish straight away. So we're looking at the Nisai picture at this moment. You're probably looking at that thing, and bearing in mind this was an expensive fish. If I remember right, it was somewhere in the region of £8,000 to £10,000. I can't remember exactly at Nisai. So serious fish, and yeah, I mean, pop it in the comments, guys. As Nisai, would that be jumping out at you? Would you be fighting to get yourself front of the line to buy that fish as it looked? And be honest, there's no shame in it. It's not completely obvious there what that's going to do as a Showa. Now, what I saw, bearing in mind at this point, I've got a hell of a lot of experience with Umo Showa and the Sumi. The Sumi's been a characteristic that was really unique with that bloodline. So, first and foremost there, we've got body. You can see there the head, how that head's set, just huge. Not a massive Nisai, 52 cm, fairly average, certainly by today's standards. But you can see enormous head, enormous mouth, love the proportions. You see the pec fins really well proportioned to the size of the body. Good length down it, just everything there ticked the boxes for me to know as well. She was going to be a real good grower. Benny as well, you can see the Benny was a good thickness to it, but it was relatively soft, quite orangey in colour, which again was never going to be a concern. I knew that over time that was going to rectify itself and come. White skin was always a thing. In fact, skin quality overall was something that's very pure skin, which was a bit of a trait of the Umo Showas. The white skin you can see just kept for years with this fish, and it's still to this day. Actually, it changed hands. The owner is actually a friend of mine now. I still get to see this fish, and even now, it's racking up some years. It looks so youthful still. It's just phenomenal. But yeah, that's what I was. So the interesting bit on this bit, and obviously the most notable bit, is the sumi, because I think this is what throws a lot of people now. The bit I was clear on was that the sumi will come with this fish. It's a typical trait of the Showa. It's the type of sumi that sits more in the surface of the skin, where we can see, if we look on that Nisai picture, towards the back end of the body, we've got the black spots that they look like shimmies coming through on the skin. That's the sumi that's forming in the top of the skin that develops there before thickening, condensing, and slowly pushing its way down. There's a few areas where the sumi is sat on the belly, where that's actually come up more pronounced. You can see that. That's quite normal because that red colour sits underneath. It's basically pushing it up in the skin, so it gives it a bit of a boost. But it's that area on the white skin that was really the most fascinating, and what it was going to end up doing. Now, what I like to explain with this type of sumi is it's not like the sumi of Dainichi, for example, because that's super predictable sumi. This is not. The only thing I can guarantee with that type of sumi is it comes, and it comes pretty quickly. How it's actually going to end up, however, is a completely different story, and not something that we can predict, because it's just not that type. It can literally come from anywhere on that body where there's some white skin, could potentially have sumi at some stage, because, like I say, it pops up tiny little bit before you know it, there's a block of sumi that's building. So that's what you can see here from Nisai to Sanzai. Not only has it had a huge growth boost at that point, the growth boost has been so big that it did lack in body a little bit. Still got good body, but it could have been a lot thicker. As you see it turn to Yonzai, quite a normal process. It's quite, if you've had such a boost in length, you can't expect to have the sheer amount of volume that it could have probably later in life. That's a process that, as the growth slows down, the body can come. It's not always got to be, you think, 1 year of growing, it's got to be an absolute tank. This is a process, and as you can see, it's been a process over a number of years. So yeah, big boost in length, and then like I say, the body volume, it's gained volume, but it's not absolutely monstrative. But you can see there what the sumi's already done in a really short space of time. Certainly that area on the white skin at the back, how that's been forming, big progress over the shoulder region as well, and on the face. Sumi on the face is never something that I really worry about with Showa or Shirotsuori, because 9 times out of 10 it comes. So if it's not there at Tosai, Nisai, I'm really not that fussed. At Sanzai, if it wasn't, you might start me getting twitching a little bit. But trust me, by then, normally something shows some signs of coming on there. So, yeah, when we saw this, it was a no-brainer, to leave the fish there for another year, knowing the guys at NND take such good care. My advice was I expected it to put about 10 cm on, which is quite normal from Sanzai to Yonsai. And I expected a big boost in body volume. And that's what you can see is exactly what happened from 3 year to 4 year. Really good growth again. I mean, 11 cm, it was above the average that's normally achieved. Sumi progress wasn't too much at this point. It sort of held what had happened, what had progressed. Pec fins come on a tiny little bit, but other than that, it was more the growth and the body volume. You can see the skin looking glorious still, especially that white skin. To get white skin this pure doesn't happen all that easily. And then, so at that point, we decided enough was enough. 76, it was getting towards the sort of maximum end these fish will grow to anyway, so saw no value in leaving it in the pot in Japan any further. Bearing in mind, from the customer's perspective, there's no warranty at this point. If the fish dies, it's at the owner's risk. So we would have lost all them gains. It's sort of a real thing of, hard to decide when's the right time to do. You can get a bit carried away when you're seeing such good results. But yeah, we discussed it and decided it was time to ship it home. I remember I was absolutely on eggshells until that box landed and it was here in the country. Got home safely, and then this was another year later after being in the UK water. And you can see, I think 2 things happened there. The combination of the UK water, the Yonzai picture there was actually when that fish was straight out of the mud pond. So there would have been some sumi consolidation from then until spring in Japan. But by the by, look what that sumi did at 5 years old, coming of age a little bit, plus the UK water. And finally, we've got what is, looking like the finished article with that one. Yeah, superb fish. Good evening, Alan. Nice to see you watching and doing some of that studying. Need to get you on again soon, buddy. But yeah, wow, just a phenomenal dream shower for me. Obviously, the coming together of all that time wanting to purchase a fish like this from the Umo lineage, having seen so many fish go to all the dealers and that over the years, and wanting my own story like this one. Amazing story for the client as well. Fish that really did deliver everything that he asked for in delivering a top draw fish, and all the enjoyment that goes with it. Perching it as Nisai as a real rough diamond, and then it becoming the polished, finished article that it did. And yeah, even now, testament, like I say, to that lineage that I still see this fish, and it's really, even above, going way beyond 10 years old. It might be 12, even more now, maybe. That white skin's still holding out, and just been a superb fish. So yes, there we have it with that one. That's a real, interesting sumi type to pay out for. You see this a lot in some Omasako. Omasako's got a mix of these sumis, but you see this a lot in Omasako, Shiro Utsoris, and you get it. It's not just, it was a strong trait of Umo Showa, but even in all types, in all lineages, Dainichi is a very different sort of sumi, but I've got some fish, mainly more so a few from the Super Monster lineage, that show this type of sumi, and even some that show a bit of a mixture as well. So yeah, you can see there's a lot to this koi appreciation stuff, guys. It's mind blowing at times, but what a piece that was, and yeah, pleasure to share that one with you all. So yeah, other than that, I'm absolutely shot and red hot up here. So I'm going to call it a night, and thank you all for tuning in. And we'll be back, next week with some more of that. If there's anything particular variety-wise you'd like to see on the appreciation, please pop it in the comments, and I'll do my best to dig through the archives, and no doubt I'll have something to look at, or can maybe even go and gather a bit of fresh content for that. But like I say, thanks for watching. And Alan, if you're still watching, get in touch and get you back on here, because that was a good crack. And yeah, anyone else, guys, if you're watching, please, it's good to get guests on and talk through some processes or problems that you might be having, because it can really add a lot of value to other koi keepers as well. So there we have it. Thanks once again, and I'll catch you next week.